The movie working well? Okay.
Hello and welcome to the October Omaha Astronomical Society General Meeting for OAS, October 2020. Maybe I move that chat box out of there so you don't see it. So take a moment out for the meeting. If you have headphones, please use them with you. Please remember to mute your microphone when you're not speaking. In Zoom, the space bar push to talk button. If you do not want to be seen, you can mute your video as we are recording. You can change your view to side by side during the meeting if you wish. You can raise your hand using the icon down at the bottom of the participants list. I knew it. To file a motion, you can unmute and state your name, and to vote, you can raise the hand button. Tonight, we have elections, so we're going to be using the poll feature of Zoom. Oops. Do we have any guests with us this evening?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Colin Tice. My son and I, Aiden Tice, just joined, and he's a 10th grader at Westside. Say hi, Aiden. We're guests at the meeting. Say hi. That's Aiden. He's a young, inspiring, astronomical, I don't even know. We're getting a telescope, and he likes to take photographs through the telescope and through cameras of space and astronomy. So it's a pretty cool thing. So thanks for letting us be a part of your group.
Welcome. Welcome.
Thank you.
And what was your last name again?
Welcome.
Theis, T-H-E-I-S. Aiden is the 10th grader, and Colin is me.
Do we have anyone else?
Hi, I'm Alex Eddy.
Alex?
Yeah. I don't really have any background with astronomy, but it seems very interesting.
How did you hear about us?
I just looked it up online.
Oh, cool.
Great. Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome, Alex and Colin.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that everybody? Do we have any other guests? As a member of OAS, you will also be a member of the Astronomical League and will receive the Reflector Quarterly magazine. You will get access to Astro Park, our observing site in Weeping Water, Nebraska. And we have a great telescope loan program where you can try out a telescope, observe or experience the different types of telescopes that we have. There are many of the different ones. Our monthly newsletter, The Stella, which is chock full of information and is a really good resource, as well as kind of giving you when our next meetings are or events within the club. And Janine's holding up the reflector right there in her video window. We also have a Discord server that we set up for members to converse and collaborate. I just want to remind people that there is a Astronomy Technology Today magazine that we're working with them as a trial for the next year. I forgot to put that information in here, but there is a URL that we can go on a code, and we can get that in the break for you if you are interested. Do we have anybody use AstroPark in the last month?
I have.
Rodney? Bill and I were down there.
Yep.
That's 3.
We plan on using it this coming month as soon as we get the telescope.
Okay, cool.
I was down there as well.
Mark?
Yeah, I ran into Mark down there.
It's always a surprise when you're
I
in.
had several friends with me. Yeah, there were several friends with me, and suddenly it was somebody pulled up, and then suddenly I saw red.
Oh, we lost you, Rodney. Lost your audio.
Yeah, that was the night that I got attacked by the dogs.
Oh, was it?
It's no big deal. They seemed a little bit aggressive. I didn't want to go towards them to open up the gate, so I had to go around the car. No big deal.
Yeah, they did the same to me when I was weed eating around the gate just this last weekend.
Yeah, they like to act tough.
They didn't come up next to your car, though, did they? Mark?
They were like maybe 3-4 feet away. Yeah, they were right there.
Okay.
They were loose, just not on a leash or anything.
I don't think anybody does out in the country.
No, not really.
Right.
Oops. Oh, tonight is election night, so that's tonight's important date. So we'll kind of work on that here in a little bit. Rodney, awards chair. How's your internet, Rodney? Okay, I do know that Janine's award was sent off last week, so that was put in the mail. So Janine, it's
Just do it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What was the
You're
award
welcome.
for?
Yeah, and it's
Globular
globular
cluster.
clusters.
Globular clusters. Okay.
Globular or globular? Anyway, instead of a thunderous applause, why don't you all stamp your feet and I can feel the vibrations here. Thank you. Thank you.
There you go.
Observing chair. I need to pop out and get the file here.
Skies are good. You can observe the moon, not the half moon that I have there, but the full moon.
Okay, the slides are up.
All right. So planets. We have a huge lineup. Of course, the star, or should I say the planet of the month, is Mars, which is at opposition October 13th. It rises by about 8 p.m. local time and is closest to the Earth apparently on October 6th. And if you've been looking at it the last few nights, it's still a brilliant red. Uranus is at opposition October 31st. And if you've never seen Uranus before, one way to find out where it's at is on the 4th of October, the moon is going to be 3 degrees south of it. So that might be something to use at least earlier in the month as a little waypost. Mercury is still pretty low in the sky, west-southwest after sunset. And that Mercury has its inferior conjunction on the 25th of October. Neptune is still visible, and apparently through binoculars, it is 1.5 degrees east of Pi Aquarii. Saturn and Jupiter are still brilliant in the southern sky, hard to miss them. Jupiter starts setting around midnight. So this is your chance to get out your scope and look at the great red spot. And we still have Venus that rises around 4 a.m. And if you don't know where M95 is, on the 10th of October, Venus is close to M95. That brings us to comets. I read a little bit about this comet 88P Howell. It's visible in a 4-inch scope in dark skies in the southwestern sky. If you look up star charts, it's basically through Ophiuchus and I think Scorpio in that area of the sky through this month. I did not put up a picture of that though. Coming to meteors, we have meteor showers, the Orionid showers, and they're remnants of Comet 1P Halley, best seen between October 2nd and November 7th, peak around October the 21st, and at that time you would probably see anywhere from 15 to 20 an hour. That brings us to the moon. New moon is on the 16th of October, and we have 2 full moons this month. Harvest moon on the 1st, which was at 4:05 p.m. And on Halloween night, on October 31st, we have the second full moon of the month, which is called the blue moon. And I have just a couple of dates below that where the moon is in relation to Mars, Uranus, Saturn, or Jupiter and Neptune. I've used these to sort of find my way around the sky when I'm not sure
So that might have.
where the object that I'm looking for is.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's all I have.
Thanks, Sonali.
Thank you.
Not sure why I can't. Oh, there we go. Well, outreach during our pandemic.
Not much. We were planning the event down at Lawrence Gardens on, let's see, what would have that been? The 26th. We got clouded out. I just heard or talked to them today. They would like to reschedule for the 17th. Now there was a tentative date for the event down at Slattery Vintage Estates also that night. So I haven't totally committed to either. I think we'll just have to kind of wait and see, and I'll probably be contacting individuals that, may, feel safe in doing those events. But other than that, not much else going on as far as, planning events like that. We've obviously, we're through with our dates that we had Mahoney Star parties for, and so they're through for the year. I went ahead and canceled the public night over at Lake Zorinsky for the second Tuesday. I suppose that's prudent, for the rest of this year anyway, to not involve the entire open public at any event. The other ones I've mentioned are semi-private, well-controlled events. So that's why we're at least entertaining the idea of doing those. Any other comments? Feel free to speak up.
Well, as I mentioned at our exec meeting, I used one of the outreach, the loaner telescopes, and had 11 Girl Scouts and their parents out at a event a couple weeks ago, and they really liked it. I just put the car loads in groups with their telescope.
Good.
John, this is Steve Skinner. Are you going to say something about the InReach? I see it on your screen.
Yeah, John Larson, go ahead.
Me. Okay. There's a couple Johns. This is more geared around individuals in the club if they want to try to do some things on their own. Just a handful of people based upon current state guidelines. Meeting up somewhere, doing some viewing safely with masks. Certainly is available to do that. So observing, some people like to observe alone, some people like to observe with a group. It kind of depends upon the person. I've done a few where I've just gone to a lake and then taken some pictures. And
yeah, and it's kind of hard to how do we let everybody know, I guess, that might be interested. I know that Steve and I early on in last winter we formulated a list that all the active members at that time to do any particular, email out. But a lot of times these type of events, it's just almost spur of the moment. Oh, the clouds are going to clear tonight, and it's going to be a nice night. Let's go. I don't know how best to do that. A lot of people don't necessarily check their email constantly. We also have, of course, the Discord site that John Larson basically started up for us. That'd be a good site. I don't know. Anybody else have any ideas? Feel free to. Short of just calling each other, I don't know how to best to get word out like that.
That would probably be the best. Because if you put something on social media, that's like the whole public.
No, we can't do it public. Yeah.
You could text people as well.
If we have everybody's phone number.
We don't have everybody's phone number though.
Yeah.
But maybe it's sort of like those who are interested in doing something like an.
There you go.
Then get on Discord and talk. We'll do it in the general channel. Would be fine.
That's a good idea.
And if you haven't been on Discord, the July meeting, which is now up on YouTube, I can get a link for that. Try to get our webmaster to put that on the website. So I actually did a program on how to use Discord then. So there's a lot of instructions in there.
And
it's pretty easy though. You don't need a lot of instruction. Just follow the notes in the current Stella and have at it.
Yeah. Now the only thing I will say is there have been folks who've signed up for Discord, and when they would exit, when it says leave server, they thought they were logging out. When you click leave server, you're gone off the server. So then you have to like sign in again or use the invite again. So you don't want to leave, you just want to close the app or close the website. So that's the only thing I probably don't have in my presentation that I did. Okay, thank you. Telescope and binocular lone chair, Stafford.
Yeah, it's been kind of livelier than several months have been over the past several. The 10-inch Dobbs are all back in town, although one of them's going to be going out probably this weekend. 11 by 80 binoculars, they're waiting for somebody too. They also have a reservation to be fulfilled for the Intelliscope as well, so they come in quickly and go out. Same with the 6-inch silver Dob. Hoping we got a new edition on here, or two newer editions, I should say. The Orion Intelliscope and the Meade 8-inch LX3 are recent additions to the scope loan fold, and most likely they're all going to be checked out pretty shortly here too. So, got to watch. I'm going to say conditionally, the 10-inch Dob #1 is available. I gave that a look today, and there's some pretty serious damage to the base. I'm going to try to repair that with some hardware store based materials. That might do the trick, but we'll just have to keep an eye on that one for now. And of course, with the winter coming on, I'm going to probably kick in a minor repair cycle on some of the pieces and the scopes, pending pieces and parts and stuff. So that's about it.
Is it moisture damage on the base? Is that what it is? Because it's like MDF.
Moisture is a contributor. What looks like it may have occurred is that the scope was put, or the base was put on its side, and something heavy may have been put on it, because you can see where one of the bolts on each side the bolt stayed, but the base didn't. So the particle board is physically damaged.
Okay.
it's hanging in, but it's not my favorite situation for a scope like that.
You said that that was just one of the 10 inches?
Right.
Okay.
Maybe we should budget to get a new base for that scope.
That would be the ideal, yeah.
What's the name of that fellow that
Ken
Kim
Fisher?
got her base from?
Well, it's Ken Fiskus, but I wanted to explore the possibility of seeing if I could fix it myself, because it really is not a terrible repair,
Okay.
and probably could do it for about $20 to $25 worth of materials. The 10-inch that we worked for in Nebraska Star Party, Ken Fiskus charged us $100 for that. So we still have it's definitely a possibility if this fails.
Okay.
Just to warn you, most of you already know that Ken is a high school teacher too. So during this COVID time, he might be swamped with recreating curriculum.
That's a thought as well.
Good point.
But either way, recreating one of these bases is pretty straightforward.
Is that's one of the two that we got from Key Needle, isn't it? The Zoomel.
The original, yeah, well, it was called telescopes.com back then, but that's, yeah, they're a very generous donator to our club at that time, yeah.
That's not generous.
Two 10-inch Dobbs, that's very generous.
That's a plum of a donation, and these are pretty decent scopes.
Mm-hmm.
This was like 8 or 9 years ago.
Oh, at least, yeah, yeah.
I remember it. Something I remember. Woo! Thanks, Stafford.
Still died on the couch.
The heck are you watching?
This is the astronomy club meeting that's on Zoom. Diana's still at work. Holy crap, I think I'm the youngest one here. Oh, wait.
Program chair.
Hey, so tonight's program is going to be by Ilya Poluektov. I'm sorry, Ilya, I'm probably butchering your name. He is a civil engineer, but works in water resources. And tonight's presentation is going to be about LED streetlight conversions and exterior lighting, light pollution, and lighting ordinances. So I think a lot of useful information for people who want to keep the skies dark and actually use their telescopes.
Interesting.
Hello, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Oh, and the pronunciation, you got the pronunciation perfectly. I was actually really impressed.
Okay. Before we start, we've got a little bit of club business to do, and then we'll get to the presentation. Is that okay?
Sounds great.
Okay. We do have elections this evening, so I figured we would do that now before the program with everybody here. I'm going to have to work with Krista on getting this to go. I'm going to stop my screen share temporarily so you can see me.
So there's two ways, John, I could present this. Either a single poll with all the possibilities, or we can go one position at a time.
That's probably the best way to do it.
That's what I thought.
And so I'm going to put up the description list for the officers on the screen. Shall we do president first?
Sounds
Okay.
good.
President officiates monthly meetings when necessary, calls for board meetings, and leads those meetings along with the treasurer, prepares an annual budget. Time requirements per month, half an hour plus meetings. I hereby put my name back in the ring for president for another year. Are there any others who wish to run against me in this election? Please state your name.
Or put it in the chat so I have correct
Put it
spelling.
in the chat. Thank you. Crickets.
Nobody wants your job.
Nope. Okay, so does the poll appear on the screen? Is that what happens, Krista?
There it is.
Oh, there it is. Oh, you can write in people. Wow.
Well, it's selection. I think the write-in will have to be sent to me.
Boy, it's live too. I can watch
It
vote.
is. Yep. Yep. And it's anonymous live.
Wow. Should I vote for myself?
I don't know what our bylaws have.
Write somebody in, John.
Write myself in?
I had to have two. You can't have a question with only one choice.
No, I don't think it doesn't let me vote because I'm
No.
okay.
You're co-host. Sorry.
That's okay.
I guess I could take you off.
No, that's fine. Mm-hmm. 70% have voted. 74%.
Okay, so I'm not seeing anything.
Really?
I'm not, no.
Are you on a phone or your computer?
Take a minute for
I'm on
mine
a
to pop up, but I've been.
I'm on a desktop.
Okay, it might be a window that popped up behind another window.
Oh, okay, I'll look for it.
Are you on a Mac or a PC?
I'm on a PC.
Do Alt Tab and see if you can see another window. That'll sort
Nope.
through.
It's got one window.
Okay.
But I mean, I vote for you. Is that?
All right.
Can I just vote for you?
Sure.
It's a chat box.
Yeah. There you go.
It's not anonymous if you do use the chat box, just to tell you.
Well, I'll just look for
I believe
Krista.
she gave up anonymity a moment ago.
Well, it does.
I'm not seeing the poll feature either.
80% of the votes are for me. So all that.
You know what? I wonder if we can only do 25 vote.
Remember, it's illegal to vote twice.
There are some computers that are old enough or configured such that you just don't see the poll.
Okay.
I have trouble with that at work too.
Well, so far it won't be an issue from what I'm seeing.
Congratulations, comrade.
Oh, thank you, President Emeritus. All right, shall we move on to Vice President?
There's the shared results.
There's the results.
If you guys hadn't seen the results coming in.
Woo. Okay, I will talk while you prepare the next one. Vice President manages Astro Park, sets agenda for work days, is in contact with groundskeeping provider and the porta potty service, officiates in absence of the president. Time requirements per month, half an hour plus occasional trips to Astro Park. Rodney, have you put your name in the ring for vice president again?
I have.
And to be open and fair, is there anyone else who wishes to push their name in for vice president?
Any opposed?
All right, let's go to the next poll, please. It's funny, my heart. It's like, ooh, it's exciting watching the numbers.
Now, you might be the only one actually watching the numbers come up until I post it, because you're a co-host.
Doesn't take much to excite John.
I'm a computer person. It's the numbers thing. Yeah, that one stopped at 25 too, 80%. I suppose it's
I think that's my limit, like
Okay.
a class size. Okay.
Well, I would say that Rodney is it. Congratulations, Rodney.
Yay.
Better mark off the ones I've done here so I know what I'm doing. Ah, I wrote my notes last night. I didn't put myself down. That's funny. Okay, secretary. Secretary records the minutes of meetings and prepares them for submission to the Stella editor. Presents the minutes at the meetings, other tasks as requested. Time requirements per month, 3 hours plus meetings. Diana Nevins, are you going to run for secretary again?
I'm willing to run for secretary again.
Does anyone else want to put their name in? Okay. Let's go. Lee's already voted for you, Diana.
Yay.
There we go. There's the poll.
So, Bradley, you can nominate Cleet whenever. He's just got to accept the office when you nominate him. It's in the chat. I'm just responding.
77% returns show that Dan's got it. I think we can say yes for that. Not bad for 30 seconds of voting. Treasurer. Treasurer maintains the checking account, receives monies and deposit and writes checks as needed, provides money report to Stella editor and to membership at monthly meetings, maintains club post office box, keeps database of membership and forwards to Stella editor and Astronomical League. Time requirements per month, 1 hour per day plus meetings. Mr. Gallagher, Mike, I can't see you on my screen. I got to move my.
I'm here.
Sir, are you going to continue as treasurer?
As far as I know.
Okay. Is there anyone else who wishes to be written in for treasurer? Please state your name. Okay, let's start the voting, please.
As they're voting, John, I do have one suggestion. Can you zoom in a little bit? I've got some side-by-side screens going on my laptop, and that text is small.
Is that better?
Ooh, yeah. I can read it with my glasses now.
I know the feeling. Lee keeps voting in the chat, so that's the extra percentage points from the mail-in ballots in chat. I think our results are in. Congratulations, Mike.
These are such close and competitive races.
I know. It's wow.
And now we got to get Mike back from San Francisco.
Oh, this is going to be a unique one for the outreach chairs. It's a co-chair position at the moment. So they keep a calendar of outreach events and sends out emails and sign-up logs. Sign up logs in effort to get members to participate, fields questions from public regarding possibility of outreach events via email and phone calls. Requirements per month, 10 hours per week or more, depending upon the season of which we have. So the co-chairs are John Johnson and Steve Skinner. Those two gentlemen will be running again. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, that's correct.
Is there anyone who wishes to run for the outreach chair?
When it comes to voting, you will be able to vote for more than one.
Ooh. You mean we can vote for two at the same time, like a ticket?
Yes.
Oh, good. All right.
I didn't make you. You don't have to choose one or the other.
Okay.
You can choose
You can
as many
choose
as you
both.
want. So if we had 4 or 5, somebody could choose all of them.
It's a two-person ticket. I get
Yeah,
it.
the two with the highest will be
Cool.
co. If you only have 2.
All righty then. Go ahead and start your votes. Of course, I'm still seeing Mike.
Anybody wanted to add? Is this the cleat add-on? Or Nina add-on?
I think they're probably good.
We've launched.
A vote for one is a vote for both.
I can only vote for one.
Yeah, me too.
I thought I
Yeah.
selected multiples.
When you vote for the second one, it takes off the votes.
Oh, interesting.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, I think, like I said, a vote for one is a vote for both.
Popularity. Ooh.
So
We got
whether
8 and
you
8
choose the
again.
candidate-
9 and 8. 9 and 9.
Whether you choose the candidate with JJ as their initials or SS as their initials.
You're voting for both. Okay.
We'll just call him JS.
We're at 13 and 13.
I think that's good. Congratulations, gentlemen. Program chair.
Thank you.
Solicits members to provide programs during meetings. Updates the Stella editor with program information. Buys door prizes for a holiday gala. I don't think we're going to have that this year, but in normal years, yes. Time requirements per month, half an hour per month. Lee.
I mean, I will run again unless somebody wants to run against me. Run against me, somebody.
I will remind people that Lee lives in the western part of the state of Nebraska.
I'll remind you that I live in the Wyoming side of Nebraska.
Oh, so it's an hour earlier there.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, it is.
I'm 2 hours earlier.
Well, then why don't you run?
Yeah, exactly.
Nanner, nanner, nanner.
Nobody wants it? Nobody?
Bueller?
Cletus, don't you want this job?
Oh, thank you. You're doing such a wonderful job.
No, stop.
Seriously, you are.
Oh, thanks.
Yes.
I ain't buying door
Sure.
prizes.
I've never thought that you phoned it in.
Lee, you live so far away, it's hard to run against you. You're way ahead.
Let the voting.
Technically, it's a behind.
No, actually, she's an hour behind.
Mm-hmm.
That's right, I'm behind.
Well, then we're in the same place.
Perfect.
You're gonna put your vote in the chat there, Lee?
I didn't know I could vote for myself. I didn't realize.
Well, 80% returns. Looks like you you are again our program chair. Thank you, Lee.
No problem.
Yay. And that is all of the members.
I had one more in my list.
That's an appointed position and
Oh,
not
okay.
a voted position. I forgot.
Okay.
So that was an oversight on myself.
Not a problem.
And related to those non-electable positions, those are appointed positions are the awards chair, which is Rodney. He's agreed to stay on for that. And the observing chair, which is Sonali. She will continue with that. The telescope and binocular loan chair Stafford, he said he would continue with that. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
My
Thank you
congratulations to everybody.
Thank you. And thank you.
Yay, congratulations.
First election that I've run myself going pretty smoothly considering everything we've been through this year of 2020. Can I tell a quick story real quick? Back when I ran for president, I had just finished doing 15 years of running the Omaha Linux Users Group. And I will say the first meeting that I ran in November of last year, I was not nervous. I didn't have any pre-meeting jitters like I had previously with running Linux meetings. So I think that myself as a person kind of grew to not be, woo crazy for something like that. So I think I thank you all for letting me be your president. And I'm glad that I have all those individuals out there who help on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, and a yearly basis. So thank you all. Okay. Oh. Whenever this is in the top of the window, I can't click things. All right, so do we want to take a 5-minute break and then we'll start the program? Is that good? We need
Yeah, that'll be fine.
Because, I sit in a chair doing videos a lot.
Yes.
Woo! So I'm interested to hear about this. I have converted my house to using down pointing lights. So
Good for you, John.
And we are recording again.
we are recording again. Great. Lee, are you back?
No.
You
I'm
just
back.
stepped
Yeah,
out for
I'm
a
here.
moment.
But yeah, Ilya had to go get a Ethernet cable.
Oh, okay.
That's okay.
That's probably good. He's probably needs a bit stable connection.
Yeah.
Wi-Fi
I
can
know.
be fickle on video calls.
I don't know if you can hear the wind out here, but it's super windy out here. So
What was your temperature today?
we were mostly in the 50s and 60s. So
That's about ours. Did anyone have any frost on their plants this morning?
No.
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 not out here. No.
I have some wilted looking petunias, but I think it's that they're thirsty. Not that they got frostbitten.
My oops. Let's see. It was a crisp 33 degrees when I took the sunrise photo this morning.
Woo! Wow.
No smoke.
Yeah, it's really pretty.
Yeah.
We actually got choked out with the smoke the other day. I don't know if you guys got it because we're near the Colorado, the Cameron Peak fire.
Yeah, we've been getting it.
Oh, yeah.
It's been
okay.
We've only had 1 or 2 good nights in the last week. And would figure that as soon as the moon gets really bright, the smoke clears.
That's right.
We've smelled a little bit of it here in Pinedale, Arizona, but not very much. And we're nowhere, we're about 6,000 feet elevation. So our summers are nowhere near Phoenix, 110, 115. We're usually got to upper 80s, maybe once in a while, low 90s, and of course, very low humidity.
That's what I was going to say. It's low humidity out there.
Janine, are you up in like northern Arizona?
Yeah, kind of northeast.
So have you been to like the Flagstaff Observatory and all that good stuff?
Kendall and I wanted very much to go, traveling all over, hitting all the best tourist traps, and then along comes the pandemic. We haven't been anywhere.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, thanks. It'll still be there one of these days. We want to see of course, the astronomy observatories. But some other time. We can do our own astronomy, observing from our own yard. Very dark skies. One of our criteria was no trees, big open sky and well away from city lights. So here we are. Come on down.
So that
Pinedale.
means you're going to be the closest to Albuquerque, where Alcon is next year.
I heard it was canceled. You mean another year?
2021. Yeah.
2021.
Okay.
It's
Hope it's not
August.
canceled by then.
Yeah, well, we'll see. It's supposed to be August, so it's the latter half of the year. But yes, we'll see. Not sure. How am I stretching for time? Am I doing good?
Yeah, he's back.
Oh, really? Okay, cool.
Sorry, were you guys waiting for me?
No, you're good. Oh, now I can see you. I don't have so many on my screen at once. I gotta move around. Lee, would you like to do your intro?
Well, basically, I already kind of
Well.
did the intro for Ilya, but basically, this presentation is going to be about light pollution, and you know, it is from the perspective of a, well, as Ilya put it in his email, a concerned citizen, which I think is sort of the best kind of fixing light pollution. Like, yeah, it has to go away. So. That's my presentation. All right, I'm done. Here is now, without further ado, Ilya, take it away.
Alrighty, thanks. Thanks for the introduction. I'm going to attempt to share my screen here. Hopefully it works out. Let me know if you're seeing something that resembles a PowerPoint presentation.
Yep.
Ooh, let's maybe start the beginning. You guys are getting
LibreOffice. Awesome.
You guys are getting a little preview there. Let's start from here. Okay. So like Lee said, this is going to be about LED streetlight conversions. So my name is Ilya Poloektov. Thanks a lot for having me present to you tonight. So the Omaha area is currently undergoing an LED streetlight conversion. Excuse me. So previously, the predominant form of lighting was high-pressure sodium lights, and they're replacing these with a quote-unquote warm white LEDs. The reason for the conversion is that LEDs are, well, they're now more efficient and longer lasting than high-pressure sodium lamps. Originally, LEDs were very small and not all that efficient, but nowadays they're powerful and efficient enough to use for street lighting. And since everybody wants to save energy, everybody's switching over to them. So you might have noticed the new lights around town. I'm hoping to hear your opinions of them and if it's impacted your astronomical observations at all. So I'm just going to check my notes real quick. So you probably noticed with these LED conversions that the lights are a lot whiter and they probably seem a lot brighter too. So here's some before and after photos. This one's from Los Angeles. Here's one from Syracuse, New York. This one's a little more subtle. This one was from Nova Scotia. And when I first noticed the conversion happening around Omaha, I was really flummoxed. Why are they using such white light? Why are they making them brighter? You know, it almost looks like they're lighting the streets up like it's a stadium. And so hopefully this presentation will kind of explain what's the temptation to use more light and to use whiter light and kind of what can be done about it. The presentation overall is kind of general purpose, so there's going to be a lot of basic stuff and probably a lot of stuff that you guys already know about. And so if you want me to skip ahead, just let me know. I can skip through things. So why, I guess, why do we use light at all? It's because we just want to do stuff at night. We want to travel safer. We want our buildings to look pretty. People want to feel safer. Lighting tends to make them feel safer. So I kind of want to talk a little bit about human vision and why we design lighting the way that we do. Again, if this is boring, just let me know and I'll skip ahead. You guys know about the visible light spectrum versus the infrared and ultraviolet and all the other stuff. What's interesting about this is, though, the eye is not uniformly sensitive to the entire spectrum. So you've got two kinds of light sensitive cells in the eye. You've got cone cells and rod cells. The cone cells are not terribly sensitive, but they enable you to perceive color. And the rod cells are very sensitive, but they don't give you any color information. And then the response of those cells is not uniform. So we call them blue, red, and green cones. Those are kind of clumsy names for them. Their response curves kind of overlap with red, green, and blue, but it's not an exact matchup. And then the response curve for rods here, it's not at all to scale. The rods are a lot more sensitive. So one of the important things about lighting design is that the eye adjusts its darkness, and you guys know about this. You know, your pupils dilate when it's dark, when they constrict when it's very bright. Here's a little diagram of the eye. I'm going to go on a little tangent and explain some of the lighting terminology. So luminous flux is the total light output from a light source. It is measured in lumens, and it's a measure of the perceived power of light. When you go to buy light bulbs in the box, it says how many lumens it emits, and then it also hopefully says how many lumens per watt, which is the efficiency. If you want to describe the intensity of light in a particular direction, that's called luminous intensity, and those are measured in candelas, which are lumens per lumens per solid angle in a specified direction. And then if you want to describe how light is striking an object, you would call that the illuminance. When you shine light on something, you say that that thing is now illuminated, hence its illuminance, and it's measured in lux. And then lux are lumens per area. The other measure of illuminance in the United States is foot candles, which is lumen per square foot. I think that's kind of a funny unit. It almost sounds like a foot candle sounds like a candle that you wear on your foot, but it's just lumens per square foot. And then the light that reaches your eye is the luminance, and that's candelas per square meter. The luminance is the thing that's usually specified in design standards, and so you would have, because you don't know where the observers is, so you want to measure how things are illuminated, and then you'd have tables of luminous intensity diagrams, and then enables you to draw up charts like this and figure out how areas are illuminated. And so back to the eye. The response of the eye depends on the luminance. You guys probably know all about this because when you observe, you like to keep your eyes in scotopic vision. So photopic vision is under daylight, under high luminances. Your cone and rod receptors are all working so you can see all the colors. When the light is very dim, you see mainly everything looks gray. You're just using the rod receptors. And then in between that is mesopic luminance, where you get partial color vision and the relative sensitivity of the eye is shifting. The cutoff between mesopic and photopic luminance is actually kind of interesting. It's not certain. Some sources say 10 candelas per meter squared. Others say about 3 candelas per meter squared. And then as you shift from daytime bright light vision to nighttime scotopic vision, the relative sensitivity of your eye response changes. And so on this diagram, your photopic peak, it's at about 550 nanometers. I'm actually going to back up the sides a little bit. That roughly corresponds to the red and green cones, where those peak if you add that up. And then if you look at the scotopic peak, it lines up with where your rods are. So it's at about 500 nanometers. Oop, sorry. So contrast is another really important thing. You can't see an object like on a road if there's no contrast. So contrast is just the difference between how an object is illuminated and its background. If an object is brighter than the background, it's set to be in positive contrast. If it's darker than the background, it's set to be in negative contrast. And if it's the same brightness as its background, it has no contrast, and you're not going to be very likely to see it unless it's like a really different color than everything else. So another problem that you get is glare. And glare happens when one part of the visual scene is much brighter than the rest. Glare has a lot to do with light levels. So if you take a bright flashlight and you go outside during the day and you shine it in your eyes, you're not even going to notice the flashlight because your eyes are adapted to daylight levels. But if you do the same thing at night when it's dark, that flashlight is going to blind you. And interestingly, if you design streetlights poorly, they'll create a similar effect. Now, there's different kinds of glare. There's blinding glare or disability glare, which there's standards to try to avoid that. There's also discomfort glare and nuisance glare, which is just when the light makes you uncomfortable or when the light is annoying. And that's harder to define, but it's also a problem. So the final cause of lighting design is visual task performance. As long as you can see what you're doing, that's good. And if you can't see what you're doing, that's bad. So if you're driving, you want to be able to read the signs, you want to be able to spot pedestrians, keep your eyes on the lane markers, avoid potholes and animals, et cetera, et cetera. Another big reason for lighting is architectural lighting. So people like to make their buildings look pretty. And so we've been trying to use light for a long time. Before electricity, it was fires and oils and things, and there was a lot of smoke, and it wasn't very efficient. And then electricity came along, and you saw this explosion of artificial exterior lighting. So I want to talk a little bit about lamp properties, and this will kind of help explain why things got to the way they are now. So when you're trying to choose a lamp, there's different things that you care about. There's the lumen output or the total power. There's the efficiency, how many lumens per watt. Efficiency is really important because that's a big part of the cost. Life expectancy is also really important. That's another big part of the cost, especially in road lighting because it's difficult to have to replace lamps over a very large area, and it's not good if you have to do it frequently. Some types of lamps get dimmer over time. That's called lumen depreciation. LED lamps have this problem. Correlated color temperature is another important feature of lamps. That's the apparent color at which a lamp glows. The color rendering is how well a lamp illuminates the scene so that you can identify the colors in it. If a lamp can emit a little bit of each wavelength, then your eye can pick that up. Ooh, that's interesting.
Sorry about that. Somebody annotated. I'll clear it.
Oh, that's okay. I thought we were getting hacked. So color temperature is a description of the apparent color of a light source. And so what it is you correlate the temperature of a black body radiator to the color at which it glows. So if you take a piece of metal and you heat it up, at first it's going to be black and it'll just be really hot. But then if you heat it more, it's going to turn red. If you heat it even more, it's going to turn yellowish. If you heat it more, it's going to start turning white. And then if you heat it even more, it's going to turn blue. Now you have to get it like insanely hot for it to turn blue. And so we use the correlation between the two to describe the color of lamps. And so lighting terminology is pretty confusing to me, but this is, I think, the most confusing thing because, first of all, it has nothing to do with the operating temperature of a lamp. So a lamp with like a 6,000 degree Kelvin, it's in degrees Kelvin. A lamp with a 6,000 Kelvin color temperature is not operating at 6,000 degrees. It's operating at whatever temperature it operates at. It's just describing the color of the light. But the really confusing thing is that people tend to refer to higher color temperature, so the bluer lamps, they tend to call those colder or cooler, and they tend to call like 100, 200 Kelvin lamps warmer, because I think the reason for that is that the lower color temperature lamps remind us it's orange, it's red or yellow. It reminds us of fire, which we think of as warm. And then the blue light kind of reminds us of ice or water, and that we think of that as cold typically. Now, the important thing about color temperature is it doesn't actually describe the emission spectra. So you could have two lamps, they could have exactly the same rated color temperature, but they could actually have pretty different emission spectrums. So here's an example of color rendering. On the left, you have a parking lot illuminated with low pressure sodium fixtures. And on the right, you have one illuminated with white high pressure sodium. High pressure sodium lamps are usually orange, but there's a special kind that has additives in it that make it glow white and give it better color rendering at the expense of some efficiency. This is also an example of bad lighting practices. In the before photo, you have nice shielded fixtures. You don't have color rendering, but in a parking lot, you don't really need color rendering, so that's good. And then on the right, you do have color rendering. You can see the parking lot is gray and the grass is green and everything like that. But again, you don't need that information. And what's worse is the camera in this picture is at a higher elevation than the luminaires. But you can see the glare from the luminaires, which is telling you that they're unshielded. So I just want to describe the families of lamps. You've got incandescent lamps, discharge lamps, and light emitting diodes. So these guys are, you heat up a filament and then it's going to glow. Pros and cons of incandescents. Pros are that, you have a nice range of wattage. They have a nice color temperature, and they have really good color rendering. Instantly, you can turn them on, you can turn them off, no problem. The cons are that they're really inefficient. Typically 8 to 20 lumens per watt, which is just like really, really bad. And they only last like 1,000 to 5,000 hours. And they generate a lot of heat. If you look at their emission spectrum, you can see why this is so. So in the visible portion, you have this nice ramp from blue to red. So you get a little bit of each color, you get good color rendering, and it's more heavy on the oranges and reds, so you get a nice warm glow from it. But if you look at the full color or the full emission spectrum, it's mostly infrared, and so you're just generating a lot of wasted heat. Some people say that incandescent lamps are really heat sources with a little bit of visible emission. So as a result, most countries are banning them, and some are partially banning them. So discharge lamps are the other variety, and these come in all sorts of different types. You've got fluorescent, otherwise known as low pressure mercury, high pressure sodium, low pressure sodium, metal halide, and you've got like all your neon lights and things. Kind of the comparison between incandescent and discharge lamps is with discharge lamps, you get a lot more efficiency. And they last a lot longer. Order of magnitude improvement there. The color rendering with discharge lamps is hit or miss, and sometimes they have funky colored glow. If there's mercury involved, which there often is, there's hazardous materials, and they require controlled gear, so they can't be turned on and off. They can't be turned on and off quickly. They have to have the control gear. What that is there's usually a ballast, a capacitor, and an igniter. The ballast is kind of a choke. It limits the current going into the lamp. And you need that because a discharge lamp will draw current until it destroys itself. And then you need a capacitor to fix the problems that the ballast creates. And then you need an igniter to start the lamp with a series of high voltage pulses. So they tend to take some time to turn on. Your usual like fluorescent lamps in your house don't need that, but the streetlights do. So this is the one we're most familiar with. And these are really interesting. They use a principle called Foster conversion. So the mercury emits ultraviolet light when you pass a discharge through it. And so then the fluorescent coating, it fluoresces and it transposes the ultraviolet light into visible light. It's a really clever trick, and it's actually used a lot. So fluorescent lamps tend to have really well, discharge lamps in general tend to have really funky emission spectra. So people tend to say that fluorescent lamps create an unflattering sort of light. And the reason is that they just emphasize certain wavelengths a lot over others. And so it ends up looking really unnatural. Here's another kind of lamp. So incandescent and fluorescent lamps were actually common streetlights in the 30s and 40s. Then after World War II, these mercury vapor lamps became more common, and they were more efficient than the previous lamps, so they started getting adopted. And they have kind of a funky emission spectra. They tend to glow with kind of a bluish greenish light. These are basically obsolete. No one likes these anymore. In the 60s, high pressure sodium lamps came along, and this uses an amalgam of sodium and mercury at high pressure. And so these tend to have a kind of an orange glow. It was really fortunate that these became so common, because this is one of the less problematic emission spectra as far as environmental impacts. The best option, of course, for environmental situations is low pressure sodium, and this has a very very narrow emission spectrum. Another common lamp type is metal halide. These are usually used for floodlights, parking lots, stadiums, and they have pretty good color rendering, which is why they're used for those things. So then there's light emitting diodes, and these are solid state semiconductors. They convert electricity directly into light. I wish I could explain how they work, but I don't quite understand it. What's nice about them is nowadays they're getting really efficient, and they last a lot longer. So some of these last about 50,000 hours or more. High pressure sodium lamps tend to last about 20,000 hours. And you can turn these on and off at will, and you can dim them. Now, one of the problems with them is their emission spectra tend to look kind of like this. There's a lot of blue light that they emit. This is kind of a warm white high pressure sodium emission spectrum. This is similar to what you see around town. They try to make them about 3,000 Kelvin. And then they also make amber ones that are very comparable to high pressure sodium. So this one is about 2,000 Kelvin. Sometimes amber colored lighting gets a bad rap, but it can actually be very pretty. And here's an example. I don't know where this picture was taken. I got it from the same company that I got the previous slide's emission spectrum from. But the point is that amber lighting can be very pretty. So what does all this exterior lighting make the Earth look like? So here's Africa. Here's East Asia, Australia, South America, and North America. So that was how the Earth looks at night, but here's the sky brightness. This is a really cool data set. You can actually go on the internet and download this and look at it in Google Earth. You see Europe's pretty light polluted. So is the Middle East. Asia's pretty light polluted. Africa still has a lot of dark skies. Australia still has a lot of dark skies. South America. It's pretty remarkable that in the middle of the Amazon you have large cities now. And in the United States. So the extent to which exterior lighting is harmful to the environment is determined by the quantity and timing of light, direction of light, and the emission spectra. Generally speaking, for environmental purposes, less light is better. Light that's on in the evening and off after a certain time is better than light that stays on all night. Light that's directed only where it's needed and cast downwards is better than light that's cast horizontally or upwards. And this can be really annoying to residents when the street light falls where it's not wanted, such as your window. That's called light trespass. And you might have heard about fully shielded or full cutoff shields before. A fully shielded fixture is one that doesn't emit any light horizontally. So if your eyes are at the same elevation as the fixture and you are looking straight at it, and if it's fully shielded, you shouldn't be able to see it glowing. You'll just see the scene below illuminated, and you might see some dust in the air illuminated, but you shouldn't see it glowing. The direction of the fixture is also important. Some fixtures are ones that can swivel. And so if they're pointed straight down, they're fully shielded, but as soon as you swivel them up, after a certain angle, they become partially shielded or unshielded. So Flagstaff has some of the best dark skies, and they have the Flagstaff Dark Skies Coalition. They have a lot of neat resources, and they have a really cool chart that shows the emission spectra of various LED lights compared to low pressure sodium and high pressure sodium lights. And they have a table that shows you the relative light pollution impacts. So the two columns on the left there, sky glow relative to LPS and sky glow relative to HPS, just give us a factor of how much worse the sky glow. If you switch from LPS to a different light, that number, multiply that, that's how much worse your sky glow is going to be. And so they make LEDs in all kinds of color temperatures. They make narrowband LEDs and phosphor converted LEDs that are comparable to low pressure sodium and high pressure sodium. And if you look at a lot of the other LEDs like 2200 Kelvin, 27, 3000, 4100, 5100, you see that, let's look at the 3000 Kelvin. 3000 Kelvin LEDs will create about 5.4 times more sky glow than low pressure sodium and about twice as much sky glow as high pressure sodium. This chart sort of sums up all these things. So there's a big difference. They have a nice example. So if you switch from one type of light to the other, holding all things constant, let's say that you switched from all low pressure sodium lighting to let's see, what is it, 4100 Kelvin LED lighting, the sky glow would increase, would be 3 times brighter. And so if you saw 2,700 stars before, now you'd only see 1,500 stars. The mouth is really dry. So you've heard about the all the environmental impacts of too much artificial light. And so one of the problems is if there's a lot of blue light. So you hear a lot about these days how blue light is harmful. And it does have some interesting impacts on living things. So with insects, generally speaking, nocturnal insects are thought to navigate by moonlight, and they're mainly drawn to ultraviolet and blue emissions. So you've seen moths circling a street light before. Maybe you've cleaned little gnats out of your light fixtures. There's competing theories of why they're drawn to light, but the bottom line is that they're drawn to it unwillingly, and they tend to kill themselves. So they either get tired, or they burn themselves, or they just die of exhaustion, or they get eaten by opportunistic predators. So that's not good. Another effect happens, there are certain insects that avoid light. There's pollinating insects that avoid light, like certain beetles. And so if you have a plant that's under illumination, those insects will avoid it. Now, it's unknown whether that is enough to actually keep them from getting pollinated. That's an interesting topic to research. But plants are also directly affected by light. So most plants have, they photosynthesize, and they also exhibit photoperiodism. So visible red and infrared emissions tend to affect their vegetative growth and reproductive activities. And it also depends on the period of uninterrupted darkness. And so when you're thinking maybe streetlights aren't that bright, they're actually bright enough to affect plants. You can sometimes see if you have a tree next to a streetlight, it'll lose its leaves later in the season than if it was in total darkness. Incidentally, marijuana growers are really interested in how lamps affect plants because they have to grow everything indoors under glow lamps. So this is a bird. Birds are really affected by light pollution. There's kind of a fun fact. According to the Audubon Society, the robins are singing earlier in the mornings now, and they say that this is because light pollution is making it look like dawn to them, and so they start singing earlier. So if you've been woken up by robins singing at 4 in the morning, you can blame light pollution. But it's really well documented how it affects migrating birds. So every year on 9/11, they do this tribute in light where the World Trade Center stood, they shine floodlights straight up into the sky. And this created a really interesting natural experiment. So researchers from Cornell went out there and, excuse me. So they've known for a long time that birds like to circle around those lights. This is happening during peak migration season. And what they would do is if there's 1,000 or more birds that they can see from the ground, they'll turn the lights off and then the birds will immediately scatter. Well, so researchers from Cornell wanted to find out how many birds were actually up there. And so they measured it with radar and they found like hundreds and thousands of birds up there. So you can actually kind of see in this photograph, there's those little specks in the light. I think those are birds. So the effects on humans are kind of interesting. There's kind of two effects. Blue-rich light is more prone to cause glare, partly because our eyes' sensitivity shifts more towards the blue spectrum at night. And the second major impact is on your circadian rhythm. So the way your circadian rhythm works is you kind of have an alerting signal that goes throughout your day. You tend to feel sleepy at night, and then sometimes you tend to feel sleepy in the late afternoon. That's just your natural rhythm going along. And then you have a kind of a drowsiness that builds up throughout the day. And so as you get drowsy at night, you fall asleep. There's this molecule called adenosine that builds up in your brain. And then while you sleep, your brain cleans it out, and then you feel refreshed in the morning. So the way blue light affects your circadian rhythm is interesting. Your circadian response goes like this. If you go outside during the morning or in the afternoon and you get a lot of blue-rich daylight, it's going to send your circadian rhythm back. So you'll fall asleep earlier and wake up earlier the next day. On the other hand, if you are exposed to blue light late in the evenings, what it does, as it gets darker, your brain starts to secrete melatonin, and all that melatonin really does, well, it does a lot of things, but one of the main things it does is it gets your body ready to sleep. And so if you suppress that late at night with blue light, you're going to fall asleep later and wake up later. And so it shifts your circadian rhythm back and forth. But your sensitivity to it is basically all to blue light. And this is the same for a lot of other mammals. But another question is, if you're outside under blue-rich lighting, like let's say that your city is using like 5,000 Kelvin streetlights with a lot of blue light in it, is that going to affect your circadian rhythm? Well, if you're indoors and you have curtains, probably not. If the lights are really bright, you might have to get some really thick curtains, but if you're controlling your light exposure indoors, it shouldn't affect you any. It's an open question whether being outside, let's say under blue-rich street lighting, is going to affect your circadian rhythm. That's kind of unknown right now. But there's concerns about it. So the American Medical Association and the IDA, they published a paper and they recommend that outdoor street lighting be limited to 3,000 kelvins. But one thing that you can say confidently though about it is that blue-rich outdoor lighting is really annoying. So in Davis, California, they did a streetlight conversion in 2016, and they installed like 4,000 Kelvin LED lights everywhere. And the citizens got really annoyed with this, and they started complaining. I'll just read some citizens' complaint. Well, one guy's complaint. This guy had a good complaint. He says, the intensity is an issue. Hurts your eyes if you glance up, yet not such a great job illuminating the street when one looks around. All in all, yet one more way that the city of Davis has made Davis a worse place to live. I suspect you have just lowered residential property values by over $5,000 per home to boot. There's a really good article written about this by this guy, Jim Benya. He's a lighting consultant and he's on the board of the IDA. So I'm just going to quote him directly. He says, the first fault is glare. New roadway luminaires installed in Davis neighborhoods have essentially no shielding in the lower half hemisphere. Individual LED devices are intensely bright, each little module typically exceeding 100 million nits, or at least 1/16 the luminance of the sun. I'm not terribly familiar with nits, but they're a unit of luminance. He goes on, for pedestrians, these exceptionally harsh sources of glare are only 20 feet away. Unless you are wearing a baseball hat at night, they are unshielded. The second fault is light trespass. The new luminaires were installed on existing poles with up-tilted arms around 25 feet above the street. On neighborhood streets, the resulting light levels are much higher than those produced by the aged high-pressure sodium system. The wide pattern of the luminaire's candle power resulted in new light emissions directly into homes, while the up-tilted arms ensured that peak candle power was aimed at upper-story bedroom windows. And the third fault was color temperature. He says, I measured the spectrum of the new luminaire down the street at 4,813 Kelvin. Davis is not a rough and tumble inner city. The atmosphere should be for neighbors walking dogs and students cycling around town. According to many residents, the 4,000 Kelvin plus LEDs simply ruined the nighttime appearance of what was once a cozy college town. So in the end, the city of Davis had to switch. They switched to 2,700 Kelvin LED lights, and they spent an additional $350,000 to do it. So, okay, if blue light is so harmful and annoying, why is there a temptation to increase the color temperature in LED conversions? So there's a few reasons. First of all, LEDs are not equally efficient. Blue diodes are just more efficient than the other ones. And each individual type of diode emits a narrow band of light. So the cheapest way to make an efficient LED light is to make a blue LED light and then use phosphor conversion to convert that blue light into the other wavelengths. And so for this reason, the first LEDs that came out that were efficient enough for street lighting were in the 3,000 to 6,000 Kelvin range. So here's some specific examples. I just went online. You can Google different lighting manufacturers and what products they offer. So here's a 5,000 Kelvin Cobra head LED street light from Superior Lighting. So this one's really efficient. It gets 100 to 120 lumens per watt, and it lasts more than 50,000 hours. If you compare that to a narrow band amber LED light, so this would be comparable to a low pressure sodium light. This one's only like 44 to 80 lumens per watt. It does last a bit longer, but it's not as efficient. It's not nearly as efficient. It's not even as efficient as high pressure sodium lights. Here is a phosphor converted amber. So this is a little bit less amber than the narrow band ones. This is comparable to like the current high pressure sodium lights. So it's about 2,000 Kelvin color temperature. It gets about 112 to 120 lumens per watt. So it's just as good as the other LED in that way. And then it's got a nice long lifespan. So for reference, low pressure sodium gets about 100 to 190 lumens per watt, and high pressure sodium gets about 85 to 120 lumens per watt. Another interesting thing about LEDs versus high pressure sodium. So because of the emission spectra, let's say like a 5,000 Kelvin LED, even a 3,000 Kelvin LED will appear a lot brighter than a high pressure sodium light. And the reason for that is the LED light's going to give you a lot more wavelengths that your eye can detect. So effectively, it's giving you more useful, quote unquote, useful light. And the other thing is because your eyes shift in sensitivity, you get more light in the range that you're more sensitive. So they're going to appear brighter. What happens in roadways is there's safety standards set by the federal government. And so you have to have such and such a luminance at the street level. So and those standards were designed with high pressure sodium lights in mind. So when you switch from a high pressure sodium light to a LED light, and you have the same number of lumens, if you switch from if you switch to like a white LED light, same number of lumens, the light's going to appear a lot brighter. So the first reason is that the whiter LEDs are more efficient, but fortunately the amber LEDs are catching up. The second reason that gets stated a lot is the driver and pedestrian safety. And the industry consensus right now seems to be that whiter light better illuminates the visual scene and enables better object detection, color detection, and response time by motorists. This is a really interesting point. There is, in fact, good reasons to use light with better color rendering. It does help with contrast, and it does help with object detection. But it's not terribly simple. So there's a really good experiment they did at the Virginia Tech Transportation Institute. They have a test track, and they set up a really good experiment. They tested drivers under two lighting situations. One was high pressure sodium, and the other was with 6,000 Kelvin LED lights. And they had the drivers detect, try to see pedestrians and objects on the road. And so they set up kind of two versions. They have the on-axis pedestrian, which is just a person standing on the shoulder, and then off-axis was the other position, and that's when the pedestrian is standing behind the guardrail. And they wanted to figure out at what distance could drivers detect the pedestrian in both positions. They also had two variations on the lighting. So they had a fully bright and then a dimmed version. So they called that high and low. So just being able to detect a pedestrian from some distance. If you compare the LED to the high LED to the high pressure sodium, so you get like 6 meters more of detection distance. So there is a difference. And then the other thing was color detection distance. So they had the pedestrians wear different color jackets, and then they wanted to see at what distance could the driver identify what color jacket they were wearing. And again, there was a small gain with LED lights over high pressure sodium. Now the previous two were for the on-axis pedestrian. So that's the pedestrian standing right on the edge of the road. There wasn't a lot of difference there, but when the pedestrian was standing on the other side of the guardrail, so that would be like a pedestrian on the sidewalk while you're driving. So under LED lights, the detection distance was quite a bit longer. So 60 meters versus 45 meters, 43 meters. Now, there's a bit more to the story. While experimentally you can show that under lighting with better color rendering, you might get more detection distance. You probably have more contrast. Intuitively, it seems like more illumination is better. However, in practice, it's hard to say whether that translates into a lower risk of accidents. So there's a lot of stuff going on. There's interaction between the headlights and the overhead lights. So an argument that can be made is that headlights, they tend to be either white or yellow, so they have good color rendering, and they give you enough color rendering. Having overhead street lights with color rendering becomes redundant. There's also a matter of what type of street it is. So like in a residential street where you have low speed limits, 6 extra meters of sight distance doesn't really matter when it's at a long distance. You have plenty of sight distance already with amber lighting and with headlights. So there might be a point of diminishing returns there. There might not really be any benefit in having more color rendering in the street lighting. So like I have a lot of questions. A lot of places have already done LED conversions. I'd be really interested to see if that's affected accident statistics at all. I haven't had time to dig into that. One situation you might have with bluer lighting is if it's causing any glare or discomfort glare, that's gonna count against making the road safer. So it's not a really a settled matter whether whiter lighting actually is safer. There's other things about driving at night that make driving dangerous. It's not just the visibility. At night, people are tired and sleepy, and that's going to increase the risk of accidents. And then people also drink at night, so that's when you have most of your intoxicated drivers around. So there may be better ways to make streets safer at night, such as cracking down on drunk driving, or maybe lowering speed limits. Like in some places, you could have a daytime speed limit and a nighttime speed limit. That's maybe like 5 or 10 miles an hour slower, and then that extra stopping time is what makes a difference. So the other big reason that you see people wanting to do whiter lighting is they claim that it reduces crime rates. And OPPD and some of their newsletters have this statement that the whiter lights help to reduce crime. And this is kind of a controversial topic, and there's been a lot of research on it. So I want to break it down into two questions. The first is, does street lighting generally help to reduce crime? And the second question is, does whiter street lighting help to reduce crime? So in 1998, they had a really good review of all the literature. In the UK, the Home Office, they commissioned this study, and they just looked at all the most relevant research at that time on crime statistics and lighting and everything else. They found that generally improving street lighting reduced the fear of crime. Very targeted improvements in areas which were scenes of repeated crime generally reduced crime. More general increases in street lighting did seem to have beneficial crime prevention effects in some places, but the results were not universal. Interestingly, some areas with improved lighting saw reduction in both daytime and nighttime crime. And this led the reviewers to conclude that it may be the case that improved lighting reduces fear of crime and increases local community pride and informal social control, which contributes to the decline in crime rates, rather than direct deterrence. On the other hand, in situations where, let's say you have a parking lot and you had a lot of vehicle break-ins and things like that, if you install lighting and closed-circuit television, that significantly reduced the rate of vehicle crimes. So their conclusion was that that lighting in some situations can help to fight crime. And the second question was, does whiter lighting help to reduce crime? And so there are some ways in which it can. So if you have better color rendering and you have closed-circuit television cameras, you get better footage. Police get better suspect descriptions, so it helps them do their job. However, if you have a neighborhood that doesn't have a lot of crime to begin with, it already has adequate street lighting, making the lights whiter is not going to do anything to reduce the crime rate. I suspect that they tend to use this claim as sort of like when they put all natural on food products. It doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot. So there is evidence that street lighting can help to reduce crime, but in specific situations. But most of the time, it just makes people feel safer. It doesn't necessarily actually make them safer. So with the temptation for whiter lighting, can light pollution be mitigated even with whiter streetlights? So there's a case study in Tucson, Arizona. When they did their LED conversion, they tried to mitigate the light pollution impacts. So they switched from high pressure sodium to 3000 Kelvin white LEDs. They used shielded fixtures and they used dimming. So what they did was they had the lights on at 90% brightness from sunset to midnight, and then they dimmed them to 60% after midnight. So they ended up saving money. They reduced the total lumens emitted, and they somehow reduced their blue light emissions. I have a lot of questions about this because it seems like, okay, if you switch from high pressure sodium to 3000 Kelvin LEDs, you're going to probably get blue light emissions. So I wonder if they maybe counted just upwards facing light emissions, or if maybe the dimming offset the increase. I'm really not sure. But the point is that they found a way to somehow mitigate the problem by using shielding and dimming. even though they switched to wider streetlights. So streetlights aren't the only thing. There's parking lots, there's buildings, architecture, there's gas station canopies, there's stadium lightings, there's residential lighting, there's construction lighting, there's all kinds of other infrastructure. Fortunately, the control of light pollution is pretty straightforward. You have to limit the light output to light only what's necessary. You need to shield the lighting sources, so cast no light upwards or horizontally. Limit the emission spectrum, and turn lights off when not in use. So one way to control light pollution is with exterior lighting code. So I wanted to take a look at Omaha's exterior lighting code. So it's a pretty good code. It's pretty sensible. They do, its main intention is to prevent nuisances, to prevent light trespass, and settle conflicts between property owners. So, you know, they do require full cutoff shielding of fixtures, except gas station canopies. Not everybody seems to comply with it, but if you drive around town and just like look at all the parking lots, most of them have full cutoff fixtures. It's not terrible. They do specify some maximums on illuminance, but what they do is they specify maximum illuminance at the nearest property line. So the intent of that is to keep light trespass to a minimum, but it doesn't limit the overall lighting. So you could light your property like super bright as long as you don't shine it on your neighbors, but that's not great for reducing light pollution because there's still no limit on it. And the Omaha lighting code doesn't apply to street lighting. So at Omaha, OPPD takes care of all the street lighting, and they just follow all the whatever safety standards that they have to follow from the state or federal government. So to compare, I wanted to look at Flagstaff, Arizona's lighting code. Now they have probably like one of the best lighting codes out there. Most places aren't going to be able to have dark skies like Flagstaff, but the same methods that are used they're really sensible, and they can be applied almost anywhere. So their code is pretty cool. They divide all the exterior lighting into 3 classes, and the first class is class 1 is where color rendering is required. So that would be like gas station canopies, like outdoor seating at restaurants, stadiums, outdoor repair areas. Class 2 is lighting where color rendering is not required. That's basically the difference between class 1 and class 2. Class 2 lighting is things that like general public security is the consideration. So walkways, driveways, parking lots. And the rule is that class 2 lighting has to be low pressure sodium because color rendering isn't required. Class 3 is decorative lighting. And then they have a separate part of the code for street lighting, but they actually do have a pretty good code on street lighting as well. So they have requirements for how many lumens per acre can you emit. So this is really important. Their code limits the total number of lumens that a property can emit based on what type of zone it's in and based on which class of lighting it's in. So they make some allowance for non-low pressure sodium lighting. So there will be situations where you'll need a little bit of color rendering, and so that's why they make like a 10% allowance. But otherwise, everything has to pretty much be low pressure sodium and fully shielded. And yeah. The total lumen cap is actually a really nice way to do it. Rather than specifying the certain luminances or illuminances at various locations, if you just specify the total lumens per acre, it lets designers work within that to just light the things that are necessary, and it puts a nice limit on it. It's a pretty easy sort of thing to follow. So shielding, they have requirements for shielding. It's not always practicable to fully shield everything. Sometimes you are going to have lights that are directed horizontally or at an angle, such as architectural lighting and just other applications. And so they have requirements, what can be fully shielded, what can be partially shielded. This sort of thing is pretty easy for engineers and architects to follow. Gas station canopies are kind of a special thing, so they have a special section on those. There's a nice example of a really overlit gas station canopy and a really nicely lit one on the bottom. So they have bans on certain things like floodlights and searchlights. These are banned. So the lighting code doesn't apply to everything. There's things that are exempt from it, like airport navigational lighting, because obviously you need to land airplanes. Emergency lighting, so that's like if police or medical or fire need lighting, they can use it. Infrared security lighting, like motion sensors, those are exempt, except they have some restrictions. And then holiday lighting is obviously exempt because nobody wants to steal Christmas. Those little solar powered walkway lights are exempt, and construction lighting is exempt. And so here's some nice amber street lighting. So Omaha's lighting code could use some updates. It doesn't have any limits on the lumens per acre that you can emit, so that would be helpful. The lighting classes would also be helpful. Some kind of section on street lighting would be helpful. Some kind of section on gas station canopy lighting would be helpful. Some statement about emission spectrum. Adaptive controls, dimming. This is really a neat thing. With LEDs now, you can dim them, you can turn them on and off. It doesn't hurt them to do that. And so you could, if you have a parking lot somewhere and the business is closed and nobody's there, you could have a requirement that the lights be turned off. And that saves money, saves electricity. LED street lights are known to cause some glare, so it might be helpful to have something for glare control. Like a lot of lamps use like a diffuser or like an opaque or like a textured glass, and that helps to diffuse the light. That would be helpful.
Ilya,
There's a
I
lot
have
of
a
reasons to
question.
do it.
I have a question real quick.
Yeah.
Do you have a section that covers what people do with their houses real quick? We're just getting short on time for the rest of our meeting.
Nope, I don't. This is actually my last slide.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But yeah, that's about all I had. I'm curious what you guys think. If you have any thoughts on lighting in Omaha and.
I'm gonna go ahead and you can turn off your screen share for now.
Oh yeah. Let's see, how do I do that?
There you go. Almost there.
Oh, this one.
There you go.
I wanted to make a comment, Ilya, that when I was living in Cedar City, Utah, we found out that they were going to update the lights into LED from the sodium, the low sodium, up to the LEDs. And so what we did is we called the city engineer and we just said, hey, do you realize that if you get up to 4,000 K LEDs, it's going to be, prison lighting? And we basically just convinced him to swap it down to 3,000 K. So that's literally all it took, was a phone call.
That's
And
awesome.
we avoided the 4,000 K LEDs. So I just think it's really important, especially if you're in a smaller community. Obviously Omaha is not this, just to recognize, at first we went to the city council and the city council was like, meh, we don't care. So then we called no, that's what happened. It was very bad. So then we called the city engineer, and it was just me and one other coworker that were just like, hey, listen to us. And so yeah, and the city engineer was like, oh, that's good to know. And then he went down to 3,000 K, and that's all it took was a phone call.
Yeah, I actually emailed OPPD and complained, and they they actually explained. So they are using apparently 3,000 Kelvin, and they, to their credit, that's good.
Yeah. If they could just back it down to 2700, they could just be like the amber LEDs. Because now that they make amber LEDs and they're about the same price as the blue-white ones, it's not that hard to swap them out. But I just wanted to.
I do like the idea of reducing the brightness after midnight. I think in portions of the UK they turn them off at midnight, after midnight. The street lights.
Some
They don't-
areas are also experimenting with using motion sensors, so that as the car moves down the street, it turns on only the lights at its position and ahead of it for a short distance, and then as the car goes by, the light turns back off again. So it's only illuminating the part of the street that needs to be illuminated, and only for a short period of time.
I like that.
Yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense when you think about it. Why not? That saves even more money than the LEDs do. Why have any light on if there's no car on the road?
Mm-hmm.
Especially when so many of them are just blinding. That's all they're there to do is blind the driver.
And particularly if it's in an area that's darker to begin with, like some of these semi-rural roads out on the edge of the city or out in the rural areas, the last thing in the world you want is for the drivers to be losing their, and for people who might be out to be losing their night vision.
Yeah.
To have the thing pop on and blind you.
Yeah. Is that common? Have you guys found them blinding also?
Yes.
As someone who just had their lights replaced outside of their house earlier this year, yeah.
Okay. I'm glad it's not just me.
It's also something people don't realize, and it's more common with older drivers and had LASIK surgery and caused them to see starkly.
Yeah.
Because it leaves these little scars in the cornea. The excessive glare, like the scar thing in this, starboard pattern. But it's very well known for older drivers. They're just more sensitive to the blue light.
Uh-oh. You're breaking up.
I mean, it strikes me one of those, a small that pushes a little could make some progress on with the right information, which you've provided us. Thank you. That was a good talk.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ilya.
Yes,
thank you.
you very much, Ilya.
Absolutely.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah, Ilya, this is very good talk. We're running short on time, or I'd chime in my story, but most of the regulars have heard it over the years anyway. Ilya, I think we talked at one time about, yeah. I appreciate your efforts. Someone younger needs to take up the mantle and try. I tried for years and didn't get very far.
Well, maybe after 10 we can tell your story again.
Yeah, I'm curious what you guys have tried so far and what happened.
Not much.
Well, thanks, Ilya. Appreciate it. Everybody give him a round of applause, please. Yay. We're going to go straight into the business meeting for tonight. I got to find my, here we go. And I need to find my controls. Secretary's report.
As I did not do the minutes for the last meeting because I was out of town, I would refer people to the minutes as they are presented in the Stella. And I would also like to make a motion of thanks for Kelly stepping in to take the minutes while I had to be away. Thank you, Kelly.
I second the motion.
Thank you very much.
I suppose that's all those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, thank you. So as they are in the Stella, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. A motion to accept the minutes. Let's see. We need to do a motion to accept the minutes as they are printed in the Stella. Do we have a
So
motion?
moved. Nina Baker.
Seconded, Tom Wilson.
Okay. A motion has been made and seconded to accept the minutes as they are in the Stella. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Treasurer's report.
Well, we had $410 in dues last month and $300 for Astro Park for mowing for expenditures, and we have 12, 5, 25, 24 in the account.
12, 5.
12, 5, 25.
12, 5, 25, 24.
24. And what was the expenditures?
300 for mowing.
300, and then the dues was
And Eric has done a great job of lining up insurance for and I expect to get a statement shortly to pay.
Oh, okay.
For liability insurance. We talked last night.
Diana, did you get the income number?
No, I didn't.
Can you repeat
Income
the
is
number?
410.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
410. Okay.
It's all dues.
All dues.
Wow.
And then expenditures was just 300 on mowing.
That's correct.
Okay.
12,525.24 balance. Vice President's report. I updated the pictures, by the way. These are the newer pictures.
Ooh.
Is Rodney still on?
I don't see him on any longer.
Okay. Well,
you do have a couple of grayed out boxes on your screen.
Really?
Yeah.
Aw.
I think those are your chat and your.
Oh, yes, they are my participants and the chat.
That's okay.
There we
just thought
go.
I'd tell
Thank you. Okay, so last week was the cleanup day. It was last Saturday for Astro Park. Bill and myself went down there with our lawn implement tools and did a lot of cleaning around the pads and the buildings, the steps, around the lighthouse. The lighthouse has been serviced, so that was fairly fresh. There was 2 new rolls in there. And we went along the drive area section as you're coming in and going out. Those they're locust trees. Is that correct, Bill?
Yeah, that's correct, locust.
Yeah. So we spent a good portion on those, cutting each individual one and then removing them so that they would not scratch any vehicles as they got longer. So looks good going into the fall with the service done. And it was actually a pleasant smell. They had just recently cleaned it, so if you can say a pleasant smell. Okay, old business. The Astro Park survey improvements. That number of 24 responses has changed since yesterday. It's actually gone up by 2. So there's 26 now. We had a lot in September that filled that out. The ground school is tabled for now. We will pick that back up later. Videos on the OAS website. That's currently in progress. I said I was going to make a checklist video. I have not yet done that. But I did get the meeting YouTube videos uploaded. So there's a cat on Krista's face. But if you, there is a YouTube channel for the club, and I posted the videos that we have in the Discord channel for the meeting, so you can watch all the previous ones, including the one that I mentioned about using the Discord server. But I should maybe we should post that one on Facebook to have an idea so people can see it. Maybe that would help participation. I'm not sure though. I mean, Facebook's more public versus.
You could do a website.
Yeah, I need to talk to Chris Russell, our webmaster, and see about getting a page up for like meeting archives, because we have a newsletter archive. We should have a meeting archive page. Maybe that would be best. So I'm going to write myself a note for that.
And
The
if
work
you,
day.
if
What's
you
that?
want me to go straight with the videos instead of putting them in that Google Drive, if you want me to go straight to YouTube, I just need the access.
Okay, we can work on that.
John, there is some meeting archive information.
Is there? Okay.
Yeah, a little bit.
Oh, that's where the handouts and things are, right?
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
It would be real easy to put links there.
Yeah. Let's see. The work day at Astro Park. I still have all my notes. I don't need that because that's done. Mike said updated us on the insurance during his component, so we're good with that, correct?
I think so.
Great. The purchase of the 6-inch Nexstar SE with battery pack is currently in progress. There's research on the various different sites and communication on who can give us pricing, if there's club discounts and such. Stafford and Steve and I have been emailing back and forth on that. I don't think we're ready to do the actual purchase yet. Would that be a correct statement, Steve or Stafford? We're still doing
Yeah,
research.
that's true. But I can, if it would help, I can show you the information, or show the club the information that we covered last night in the board meeting, if you think that would be helpful.
Yeah, we could do a brief overview. Yeah.
All right.
Is that the cat still on Krista?
Yeah, Princess Buttercup has gotten cuddly.
Is that the cat's name, Princess Buttercup?
Yes. My daughter wanted Princess, and I said no, but I would do Princess Buttercup.
Oh. Is Buttercup a Powerpuff Girls reference?
No, that's a Princess Bride reference.
Oh.
He only knows Star Trek and Star Wars.
No, I was thinking of one or the other. I actually saw a picture of Carrie Ewells from Princess Bride about an hour and a half ago, so should have remembered it. You got it, Stafford?
I tried to bring it up. It says I can't share with you sharing the screen.
Oh, duh. There you go.
All right. Sharing away. This is the state of the state as of about a week and a half ago. That some of these may get a little, may have to expand the size here. But basically, we've researched 4 companies so far. I tried to concentrate on the ones that we've either done business with as individual members or companies that have directly supported us either through OAS activities or Nebraska Star Party. Looked at High Point, Camera Concepts, Mile High, excuse me, and Astronomics. And Steve had done some preliminary research with Celestron. He arrived at a total of roughly $1,280. And if you look down here, each of the companies that I researched, they're in that ballpark anyway. The best deal, just strictly based on number and pieces alone, is High Point, because they put a 6SE bundle together that includes the scope, the eyepiece set that Steve had looked up, and a 7 amp hour 7 amp hour Celestron power type. And then we just have to add the dew cap here and the official Celestron case. The other figures use the lithium battery that's been expressed as an area of interest for these. So if we can live with a 7 amp hour power tank, which is a lead acid battery, iPoint, if I had to make the purchase tomorrow morning, would be the one I would go with. But we all agreed in last night's meeting that this still requires some further thought and discussion. So, but I wanted to share with you what we've gotten up to this point and give you an idea of the parts and the numbers that we've gotten. I think 4 is probably a reasonable number of vendors to go with. So I turn it back to you and I'll stop sharing here if that's okay with the rest of the group.
Yep.
Yep.
That concludes old business. Wow, we're doing pretty good. New business was briefly mentioned last month. The youth program coordinator chair. The idea around it, as we discussed briefly last month, as well as in the executive meeting last night, was that it would be like an after-school program, kind of spend time building a curriculum to try to get more young people in, especially if they're at school and they can't go home yet and they need some club to participate in as part of their school. If it was video like we're doing now, then we could have multiple schools, kids participate. And it's just try to find an individual who can kind of represent or make that curriculum or the connections to those schools. And then that could feed into our regular outreach. And those usually happen by invite as well as places that we go, right? So if we can kind of feed them from one step to the next and kind of make it move for them, I think it would be a good thing. Go ahead, discuss, shoot it down.
Is this where we nominate Cleet?
Absolutely.
Uh-oh, you already have a second.
Nominate Cleet and Nina.
So some of you know I have worked with a bunch of youth over the years, and I actually did run a Astro Explorers at Wilson in Council Bluffs for a year. They were really wanting to be there. It wasn't big stuff, like, hey, we're going to make a solar system out of styrofoam balls and you're going to decorate a box that used to hold paper in it and paint it up and there's your solar system. It's, just topics to get them excited and involved. How does a telescope work? It's not overly, it's like, oh, there's no quizzes, but they could be quizzes. The kids would always ask me, do another quiz, Mr. John. And it would just be like, okay, name the planet that's such and such. And then they would all try to get the answer. There wasn't any written work per se, but it's really quiet.
I guess I've done a lot of that kind of stuff too, so I understand where you're coming from. It's pretty simple, pretty basic.
We're all
I'm not.
quiet,
It's not
waiting
like
for
we're
Cleet
starting
to
it.
speak up.
We're not starting it tomorrow, right? It's it's a program to design and put together and have it work over a set amount of time, right? Say maybe a year and a half, because yes, the kids will primarily know how to do Zoom anyway, or any kind of video chat. And limitations that you're going to run into are, does that school system let that video chat work, right? Can you partner with someone like Collective for Youth or Partnership for Kids and become a service provider for them? And does it also work its way into that new STEM center that's going to be built downtown, where we're kind of part of that science component, and we have, say, maybe a curriculum that could be used? I mean, it's going to be a few years before that center is built, but if you can say, like, hey, we have this, we think it can plug in, can we do it, I guess? Were you putting your hand up, Nina, or were you like, no? Okay.
It would also tie into the library programs.
I was putting my cup down.
Okay. I thought maybe you had a question. Okay. That's true. It could tie into library programs
Public
as well.
library programs are always looking for stuff like that.
And are you talking about something now with Zoom or later where people are in person?
I would say that it would be Zoom later.
Okay.
Because to get the most amount of students, you'd probably do it over video, right? I mean, you could do it in person as well once the pandemic's clear. But if you wanted to do multiple school systems, you'd have to do it over video, because you can't have like 1 or 2 people in 12 different schools at the exact same time. They could be, say they are produced videos, and then you're there to facilitate the Q&A component of it, right? So you have a set, here's how a Newtonian works, and then they're watching it, and then you're like answering their questions when the video's done. I mean, it could be something like that.
How many of you are familiar with KPAO TV?
I'm not familiar with that.
No.
It is a public access television channel owned by the city of Omaha, free for anybody to create programming.
Metro does a lot of that.
PAO, Public Access Omaha.
Big Cleat, do they provide any kind of technical and audiovisual support in doing that, or is that strictly on your own?
No, they have a studio, a complete studio with, as near as I can tell, it has everything that any of the 3 major channels in Omaha have in their news departments. They've got multiple cameras, they've got a green screen, they've got, they've got all the sets for interview programs, that sort of thing. You just basically go in and tell them what you want to do, and have a script ready and some outline of what you need, and they'll produce it for you. Help you produce it, actually.
Interesting.
So something like that can be used to get this youth program started.
If the person is also nervous, I have a bunch of pre-service teachers, elementary and secondary ed, STEM, they're called STEM stars, that need volunteer hours. They would help develop curriculum too. They're usually looking for projects in fall and spring semester.
Don't worry. If you speak up, I'm not going to say you're it. You run it. No, I'm not doing that. It's just a general discussion. It's not like it's going to start tomorrow and we're going to hit the ground running. No, there's a lot of thought and planning that goes into it.
Well, this is a crazy thought, but I'm wondering, there's got to be some young people like that the person who gave like a tool time presentation, like the last one that we all got to be in the same room for in
Michael?
March. Was it Michael? Yeah. I'm just wondering if we could have like maybe an outreach youth program chair that's actually youth, you know?
Well, that's what we were kind of thinking, is if it was somebody who is close to their age and can be a mentor, like somebody who's maybe they just graduated from high school or college and they've kind of gone through some of it. Can they be that mentor and coach for the younger people? There's Abby, I don't remember her last name. John knows her. She spoke at NSP last year, correct?
Sorry, Abby Bolenbeck.
Bolenbeck, yeah. So she's been kind of like a force of energy and of science in her realm. So trying to find an individual, I think, will be a challenge. But maybe there are some science teachers in town that may have students or former students that they know of that might fit that bill, who could be as part of their school to provide some of those things, like Krista said, some volunteer hours.
We did have a 10th grader that bailed early tonight.
Yes.
Exactly.
10th grade is perfect. Then all the kids look up to them.
As long as it doesn't impact their schooling. Their school comes first. As I always told my interns, no, your school comes first and then you do the work.
Idea. Might want to check with the local Boy Scout troops, because some of the senior level scouts will be looking for service projects. And any Boy Scout who has their astronomy merit badge would be more than well equipped to handle this. And they would be in the right age range to be that mentor figure that the younger kids are looking for.
That's a great idea.
We also have the Girl Scout Astronomy Club, which we're affiliated kind of with.
Good idea. So think of it as just me introducing the idea tonight. I'm sure there'll be a lot more planning and things like that. But it's not something that we have to vote on this evening as a let's do it kind of a thing. I want a lot of thought to go into it before we, is it feasible? Can we find somebody? Is it, will it detract from anything that we're doing? So I want it to be.
I think it just comes down to whether we can find somebody who's enthusiastic and willing to put the time in.
Yes.
Which is clearly Pete's Cleet, since he knows about that public access television channel.
Yeah, but I wouldn't pass the physical.
Would you want to be cloned?
You're young at heart.
Well, and the other thing in getting a young person is they don't have to do it all on their own. There could be people who help them out. They may be the public face of what's going on for that youth program, but there are many within the group that could feed projects, ideas, assistance, do work behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Hence a committee.
Or a board of some sort.
Right, a board.
Yes.
That's a lot of work for a young person to do who may not know how to do it, but there's lots of people in the group that know how to do things. We just need a young face up front.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for listening to my proposal. I appreciate it. So we'll check in on it every so often and see if we can get some movement on it. How's that sound?
That's great.
Great. Well, the next meeting is November 6th. It's a Friday. Oh, they're all Fridays. We will be in Zoom again. So remember that we have a password. You all got in with the password, so you all know that. Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn the business meeting?
Fleet Baker, I will so move.
Fleet Baker. Is there a second?
I second.
Second. Or Lee.
Yeah. Lee beat you.
It's okay.
A motion has been made and seconded to adjourn the business meeting. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. There's a lot of people on mute for that nay. Meeting adjourned. Where's the, oh, there it is. Here we go. I know you're waiting for it.